You and I were talking before this interview about how that sense of urgency and people talking about it sometimes can be waning because there's something else in the news cycle that then takes other people's attention. But if you haven't processed and understood and explored like you did, if that doesn't happen and people just go on to the next news cycle, there's no processing and resolution that happens. And then we repeat the past over and over again because we haven't learned. And then when we don't talk about things, the next generation can easily get duped. I think about that with Iran right now and what's going on in the United States, where especially non-Iranian youth have a very different perspective than what members of the Iranian diaspora have, because we, as members of that community, did not tell the stories. And for whatever reason, we were trying to establish ourselves. There were some stories that were told, books that were written, some films that were made, but it was not this consistent, concerted effort that created a foundation such that outside propaganda that I think is probably from outside influences, and then also people here in the States who have a different agenda, so that it would be like obvious to people that, oh, of course the Islamic Republic is bad. But we didn't do that enough. We didn't tell those stories. And unfortunately, then we're kind of repeating some past patterns. And so I think what you're doing in terms of chronicling this is so, so important.
Well, it's not even just that you haven't told those stories, and I understand why some of those stories haven't been told. They're so painful, and you're escaping a totalitarian regime, and all you wanna do is try to find peace and safety, and who can you trust? So I understand. I think the Soviets in this country may not have told as many stories as they should have either, but it's completely understandable. But the problem is when these stories are not told, that leaves the vacuum. Malignant actors get to tell their stories unchallenged. And that was my greatest fear here. I mean, Randy Weingarten came up with a book in September of last year,
Yeah, I
you know,
saw that.
and she's constantly in the news. She's got unlimited resources in terms of going in front of every single mainstream news host and stuff. And what have we got? Even with this tiny little film, um, it's hard, but at least there's something out there. There's a counter narrative. Otherwise, these liars, these charlatans go unchallenged.